This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. It is Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. What a Monday Night Raw. I know the main event wasn't particularly exciting given the fact that it's a heel-on-heel matchup, and it doesn't really matter to me if the Judgment Day is there or not. To most people in the match at Clash, and Drew is a heavy favorite. I thought the show as a whole was really enjoyable, and boy, oh boy, did Ricochet get written off TV. I mean, we knew that his contract, as not just me, a lot of us knew his contract was coming to an end. He may be completely gone from WWE forever. We don't know. He may go to AEW. He may renew. For the time being, he's gone. Samantha Irvin played her part well, but Ricochet, who came to the aid of Dragunov during his match with Breakker after he lost, saved Dragunov, fought off Ricochet. Ricochet fought off Bron Breakker, and then later in the show we have Bron Breakker attack Dragunov again, and then Ricochet attack Breakker, and then Breakker just went on a tear, and it was uncomfortable. I mean, that bump, you know what, even more to me than the bump on the car, the power slam, the running power slam onto the car, which, yes, was real glass. From what I understand, there was nothing really, fake, if you want to say that, or really worked about that car. The bigger bump to me was the bump off the truck onto the concrete. I think it was concrete, right? Was it pavement? I don't think it was anything worked at the bottom either, unless there was some kind of special padding there. It was brutal. And honestly, even if it was worked somehow, which I don't think it was, that is a brutal bump where he, spearheaded him into the truck, and then Ricochet bounced off the truck onto the ground. Oh my God. I mean, that's how you get yourself injured. There's no good way to take that bump. I don't care if you've been working 30 years. There's no good way to take that. Physics will overshadow and supersede any kind of experience you think you may have. Oh my God. Just go watch it. I mean, those are even Michael Cole in that bump that Ricochet took. Not necessarily the car, which they reacted to appropriately, but the bump that he took that I'm talking about off the truck onto the pavement. Even Cole was like, geez, like you could hear his genuine concern for Ricochet. That was, I was sitting there and I've seen, if you've been watching wrestling, you've seen crazy bumps before. A lot of them are very carefully constructed. So I don't want to make too much about a single bump, but just go rewatch that. Imagine taking that. Even if there's a pad there, which I don't think there was. It looked like just straight up pavement. Holy crap. So, you know what? I don't like Ricochet on a personal level, but on a professional level, dude, props. Congrats to you for, just throwing caution to the wind. You certainly have earned my respect, and have, even personal or not issues. I've always respected his in-ring ability. That's never been a concern, and this certainly was no exception to that. So Ricochet being destroyed by Breakker, being put in an ambulance, Samantha Irvin, doing her part well, being concerned for Ricochet, leaving with him in the ambulance, and then also having the announcers afterwards seeming to genuinely say someone's got to do something about Breakker. It's one thing to beat up your opponent in a match. It's another to take them out, outside the ring and in the brutal fashion that he does. So Breakker, for all the credit I just gave Ricochet, obviously he's gone for at least indefinitely, who knows. Ricochet is gone, but Breakker is going to really benefit from this because a month ago you had kind of looked at him as, he's the NXT guy. He comes in, he's powerful, he does one move. No. All of that has been erased in a single night. Anybody who is concerned he's going to be the next Goldberg, I think all of your fears and concerns about that have been erased in a single match. Breakker and Dragunov, before the beatdown of Ricochet outside, was easily the match of the night. That is wrestling, my friends. Physical, nasty, back and forth, just looking like they're trying to beat the hell out of each other, not pulling any punches. It was a fun matchup. And Dragunov, to his credit as well, is a tough SOB. Dragunov just fits the bill. His promos that he does prior to or have been just well done, great character development, and they just meshed really well. So that match was an absolute treat. I enjoyed the hell out of it, as the in-ring crowd did, or the in-person crowd did as well. And it's one of those matches that you're like, yeah, they have a little bit of a beef here, but it's not super interesting from a story perspective. That's a perfect example of not a great story going in, but one being developed throughout the match that draws you in. That's the beauty of pro wrestling, and the beauty of not having to lean on creative to do it, where the wrestlers can just do what they do best, and that's kick ass in ring, put on a good match, physical, authentic, and not have to worry about creative having to give them a great line or whatever. So that's pro wrestling right there. That was a fun match, and Breakker is going to benefit here. And Breakker is really being established as a guy, as a future top guy. Not a world champion, I don't think this year. Maybe sometime in 2025. I would think that he's already a favorite for the 2025 Royal Rumble. A favorite. Now, maybe not the favorite, but a favorite for the 2025 Royal Rumble. At the very least, one of the final four. You can already, I think, look ahead to that. So Breakker right now, we are seeing the foundation being laid. So those of you that are excited about Breakker, want to see him be champion, patience, my friends. Patience is going to be your best friend, and understand there is a process. And right now we are at the beginning of that process, and it's going well. And as we continue, you'll see him maybe work his way up into the mid-card, for the mid-card championships like the Intercontinental title. Maybe he'll be the one to beat Sami Zayn when they get there, when Sami Zayn detaches himself from Chad Gable in that story. So we could easily see Bron Breakker become Intercontinental champion this year. But when it comes to the World Championship, not yet. And I love also that they have continued to push the fact that what triggered Breakker is the fact that Adam Pearce, who wasn't there last night, didn't put Breakker into the King of the Ring tournament. They're not letting that go. I think that's great, because a lot of times when pay-per-views or PLEs come and go, they're forgotten until the next time they come around. But if this is something you can point to as the snapping point for Breakker to call back to King of the Ring of 2024, I think it's not only funny, but it's nice that you can look at it as a milestone where he began his tirade, where things changed for him when he wasn't included in something. So, suffice it to say, I was a big fan of what they did with Breakker and Dragunov. To his credit, I don't think he lost, even though he lost the match, I don't think he lost a thing outside of putting a tally in the L column, which in pro wrestling doesn't mean nearly as much as it does in other sports. So I think it really helped both men go to that next level. And do I think Dragunov and Breakker are done with each other? Probably not. given what happened at the show on Monday and Raw, I don't think that they're done with one another, and I don't think the fans are going to be sad that they're not done. I don't believe they have any PLE appearances scheduled for Clash at the Castle, but they also could be in the Money in the Bank ladder match. I think they are perfect for the Money in the Bank ladder match. In fact, you could even argue that if Breakker's in the Money in the Bank ladder match, that he is a favorite to win. Now, could they continue with the story that Breakker is once again excluded from the match and therefore it's going to trigger him into the next thing and Breakker is not in the Money in the Bank ladder match? Like, yeah, they could. That'd be kind of funny. I wouldn't hate that. I don't want to rush Breakker. I'm a big fan of slow burns. It allows you to kind of look at the landscape, take your time, be strategic. There's nothing against hot-shotting things here and there. Everything doesn't need to be a slow burn. My God, if that was the case, nothing would move. But for big guys, big stories, long story arcs, I think it's a lost art that under the Vince McMahon regime for decades was missing. And Triple H has shown that he has at times been a fan of that, has been advocating for that. Obviously, Cody Rhodes being one of those stories took him 2 years, although Vince was responsible for the loss at WrestleMania 39 last year. That said, Triple H has shown he has more patience when it comes to payoffs, and I appreciate that. And it also makes it smart because hot-shotting things can be dangerous. You could look back and go, oh, crap, I wish we didn't do that. I wish we thought that through a little more. You know? It just makes sense to me that Bron Breakker is a guy that you take your time with and don't rush. And I don't need him winning Money in the Bank. I don't. But if they do, I mean, he does have the ability to hold it for a year. Okay. So there's nothing wrong with that. But all right, I've spent 12 minutes nearly on Bron Breakker already, and I'm not sad about it. So, all right, let's continue with the rest of Raw. But before we do, I'd like to welcome a new patron, and that is Logan McFadden. Welcome to the WWE podcast, my friend. Welcome to the ad-free side of things. All right. So let's see here. Let's go to the next. Well, let's start with the Monday Night Raw Open. All right. Let's go in order. So McIntyre comes out and doesn't say a whole lot. He said he knows the rest of the Judgment Day is behind Damian Priest every single time and doesn't give a damn. He was interrupted real quick. And Priest is kind of bumbling a bit at the beginning of the promo, felt like he couldn't find his footing, and then eventually did. That he's saying he doesn't need the Judgment Day there. He'd want them there, but doesn't need them there. And Priest said he was heading into McIntyre's territory, but he would still put him down. And he said, I'm champ because I'm Damian Priest. And then McIntyre said it's the same speech. He doesn't give a damn what Priest has to say. And McIntyre said the only chance Priest has is the idiots he was accompanied by. And Priest told him to stop and gave Drew a proposal and said that if you beat Finn tonight, you know, the Judgment Day will be banned from ringside for our match at Clash. And if you lose, Judgment Day is going to be there. Kind of a mini Cody Rhodes Bloodline Rules matchup here with the tag team match with The Rock that happened at the night one of WrestleMania, but obviously at a much lower stake, but kind of same thing here. So a couple things. One, I still believe Priest feels like a champion more than I ever thought he would. Is he still probably a transitional champion? Yes. But he may be, in the hierarchy of transitional champions, one of the best transitional champions. If they keep the belt on him, I will be shocked, number one. I won't lose my mind. I think both choices are pretty good. I would put it on Drew so that Punk could then challenge Drew. And no, I would not, as I've said from the last several weeks, have Punk screw McIntyre at Clash. The only reason, the singular reason, is you are in Scotland. You will turn Punk heel. Bad idea. You want Punk nowhere near that event. So I wouldn't even have him show up. Nothing. Punk does not exist for Clash at the Castle. So that's a big no-no. If they do it, I would be very surprised. But what I would say is, though, there's no bad decision when it comes to this. But when it comes to Drew, I think it is probably time. And then you have Punk and Drew fight one another for the world title heading into Money in the Bank, and maybe at SummerSlam you throw a third person into the mix. But as far as this Monday Night Raw went, it's interesting. These two men are heels. Both are kind of, they're not, I don't know. I would say that Damian's more of a babyface than Drew is. Drew has really locked himself into that role, especially now that he's opposing Punk, and that Punk rivalry is, while it's been on the back burner while Punk's been injured, has started to really boiled over, and it's about to come to the forefront. And this is probably Priest and Drew's final interaction for a while, at least one-on-one. So you have Punk, who's ready to face Drew. That kind of locks Drew as a heel. But Damian is constantly saying that he doesn't need anyone to win. He doesn't want people to help him win. He has been reasonable. He's trying to keep the group together. He seems to have some kind of moral compass in him, that he's making sure Dom doesn't get involved with Liv because it's not fair to Rhea. And like, he's a very stable guy. He doesn't do sadistic things. So like McIntyre, or rather Damian Priest is, I don't know, outside of just being associated with the Judgment Day, is he really a heel? He's very reasonable, easy to listen to, great speaking voice, performs well in the ring. I mean, keeping him champion is not the worst thing in the world. Many of us who have looked at Damian and said, yeah, he'll just hold it until Drew takes it, or he'll hold it for a month. It's like, yeah, probably, but there's got to be a discussion within WWE of like, okay, hey, Drew probably should take it, but let's just hear the counter argument to Damian retaining the championship. What is that argument? Ultimately, no, though I think that spoiling my predictions for this week in my preview and prediction show, I still think Drew's going to win it, because it wouldn't make sense for him to not, especially if Punk's not going to be there, and he shouldn't. So, hey, ultimately, I think it is going to be a really good match. And Damian, if this is his final song for the time being as champion, has done a very nice job. Overachieved. So, there. All right. We then have Damage Control, Kairi Sane, Io Sky, and Dakota Kai come out, and they head into a commercial break, and then it went to Lyra Valkyria, who took on Io Sky, and we were shown Lyra, arriving to the building, and we saw actually Bron arriving to the building. All these people arriving to the building, it is a nice touch. I'm not sick of it yet. As long as you don't have your stupid dog with you, I don't care. It's a nice touch. It humanizes them, makes it look like they're people traveling through the airports, and they've got their bags and they're not in their ring gear. It's just a nice touch. And Lyra had that treatment, and I think that she didn't have the best introduction to the main roster with her weird, I don't even remember what it was. Her context of her first few promos were just bizarre. But in ring so far, she has delivered in a big way. And Io Sky, who I think has been a really pleasant surprise, especially since WrestleMania, having one of the best matches of the night at WrestleMania. I think that she is also underappreciated. And you have her in Damage Control. That still is a very stale group. Especially since WrestleMania, they've been really, really stale with not a ton of mic time, no real mission that they've declared. But Lyra and Io worked a really nice match here, and it ended up with Io Sky getting the victory in 10.5 minutes, with Sky pulling her hair and hooked her into a crucifix pin and got the 3 count. After the match, Sane and Kai attacked Valkyria from behind while Sky watched, and then once Sane and Kai went to ringside, we had Caden Carter and Katana Chance run out to help Lyra, and that'll cause Damage Control to scurry. So it seems like things are now evened up when it comes to Damage Control and Lyra Valkyria, and now the Caden Carter and Katana Chance, who have sided with her. So we have a little bit of the numbers game has been neutralized for Lyra, and it's fun. I mean, honestly, this is the time where you introduce new stars, you get people involved. There may not be big crowd reactions. There may not be the big pops for the big stars, as I've said, post-Mania for the first couple of months afterwards until you hit SummerSlam season. But that's okay. You need new stars. That's the lifeblood of the business. And this is not the exciting part, though. If you're looking for big pops, big reactions, and big star power, can't always have it, because you got to have that next person in line. You got to You got to build a star somewhere. You got to start somewhere. And it's sure to the casual fan, this may be a turnoff. To the casual fan, this may be a little bit boring. Who cares? But like, this is how stars are made. What are they going to be made in the dark where you don't have to deal with it? Or are they done off TV? Of course not. You got to get them on TV. So do Caden Carter and Katana Chance excite me? No, I'm not going to sit here and pretend they do. I think they have zero character development. I mean, I'm talking, if there could be negative character development, that's what they have. None, like absolutely nothing. So that could help when they do, but right now they're involved in something. At least even if they don't have mic time, they're involved in some kind of significant storyline that should keep them on TV for the next several weeks. And, Io Sky continues to be an intriguing character. And, I think that she's going to be okay. I think, and same with Lyra Valkyria for, at least the short term. It seems like they're the two focal points, with the other 4 women being backup dancers, so to speak. Okay. Now, yes, we're going to get to a 6-woman tag team match. Yes. We also had Liv backstage hanging out in the Judgment Day's corner of the arena. I don't want to say locker room or VIP area. They just set up some random place in the arena. And Dom also, I'm sure everyone else saw this. The Judgment Day background, Rhea Ripley's picture was right next to Dom when they went to Dom live. Obviously that was done on purpose, with Rhea Ripley lurking in the background, symbolically in the shadow, waiting to return. And, as she put it before she left, she's coming back for blood. And I think it may be Dom's as well. But Liv tries to tempt Dom even more, gives him her room key, or as Damien Priest said, her hotel card. But we did get more temptation from Liv to Dom, and I think Dom is eventually going to cave. He keeps saying he doesn't want her, but then, doesn't really resist too intensely. And he's like, yeah, you got to get out of here. And Liv is just, persistent. And there was several segments throughout the show about this hotel key that Liv gave Dom. It kept appearing, disappearing, and you knew that was going to happen. But it ended eventually with the card in the middle of the table, and they're about to go get ready for a match, and Finn Balor swipes it, which I thought Dom was going to do it. I thought Dom was going to put it in his pocket. It's very slyly, and instead it was Finn, which was kind of weird. So I don't know what that means. I will say, if they're trying to somehow make Finn and Liv a thing, I don't want it. Please, good. Dom and Liv is very intriguing. Finn and Liv does nothing for me, and I don't want this to be some kind of weird love triangle / 4-way, so to speak. I don't need that. So if that's what they're alluding to with Finn taking the card instead of Dom, no, please. No need to overcomplicate this. This story is very enjoyable as it is. Okay. But maybe it was just so Dom didn't take it, right? He's just protecting Dom. Maybe that was the purpose. So it continues to be very, very good TV. But okay. A lot of backstage stuff with The Miz and R-Truth. They asked Sami if they had a conversation with Sami, and Zayn found Maxine Dupree and Akira Tozawa. All right. So Otis stopped Zayn and said he lost it and wanted to explain. Zayn said he didn't need to because he went through what he did with the bloodline, and Zayn asked Otis why he put up with it. Otis spoke about how Gable has been there for him and said he's nothing without him, and Zayn said that's not true and hopes Otis realizes how special he is and how special he can be. And then Otis' chants broke out. So the missing hotel key was a hotel key card is a kind of a story throughout the whole show. Very clever, by the way. I like it. That's I don't know if it's not really original, but it's something that hasn't been done in a while. Braun Strowman then teamed with Ray and Dragon Lee versus Dom, JD, and Carlito. This ended with, let's see, Babyface is, of course, winning here. Ray, Dragon Lee, and Braun beat the Judgment Day in about 14 minutes. the interesting part of this, of course, what most people are going to talk about is Liv showing up. And she showed up on the apron only to be bumped off of the apron onto Dom in a very precarious way. And Dom didn't fight it off. See, that's the key here, right? No pun intended to the hotel key. But that is the key. You know, you have Dom who continues to say one thing and do another. He's saying the right things, but his actions say otherwise. Where he's not really resisting Liv Morgan, so to speak. He's very mildly trying to push her away, knowing that he's saying the right things, but if he really wanted to get away, he would. And when Liv was on top of him, Liv obviously took advantage of that. There's still no second kiss. There's no kiss again. I think the big payoff for this is going to be at Clash in some way. I think you could have that. Clash is going to, I think, also bring about the Wyatt Six or the whatever family with Bo Dallas, whatever offshoot of the Fiend or Bray Wyatt that they're planning. This has to be paid off at Clash, by the way. I don't need any more QR codes and riddles, okay? Not that I'm taking any time to try to decode them because I'm too lazy. I'll leave that to you guys to do the actual work. But I'm done with the QR codes and stuff. Like, let's just go, right? So I think that's going to be paid off at Clash, and the same thing with Liv and Dom. If it's not, then at the very latest, it'll be paid off at Money in the Bank, where it's revealed that Dom is, falling for Liv, and Dom kisses Liv. So I think the latest would be Money in the Bank. The earliest this is paid off is at Clash. But all right. Let's go on. We have, let's see, Io Sky stressed out. Dakota Kai and Kairi Sane stood behind her, and Dakota Kai asked what happened. And Sky said she took care of it. Sky screamed and then yelled something about damage control. So damage control continues to, I don't want to say disintegrate because I've said that for 2 years. I think they're just going through the typical cycle. And you know what? Dakota Kai, when she turned on Bayley, actually had some really fun moments. I mean, she's shown that she can talk. Dakota Kai can talk. Dakota Kai's talented. And so she's kind of, once again, taken a backseat role to the story. Okay, we then have Sami Zayn come out, and he delivered a promo. He said that he told the fans that chanting his name, that they were very nice to him and thanked him. He said he needed that because he messed up a couple of weeks, and he spoke of defending his title against Chad at Clash and said it started extremely personal, and now he doesn't know what to call it. Zayn said he would defeat Gable and put an end to all of it, and that there's no more dealing with the abusive, manipulative psychopath. And Chad Gable came out, and Gable said it was typical of Zayn to attempt to tear down what he's built while making himself the sympathetic figure in someone else's story. And Gable said the Alpha Academy trusts their master and his methods. And Gable told Zayn to wait and see how happy the others would be once he takes the title on Saturday. And Zayn asked Gable if he's out of his mind. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, Zayn said the crew would not be happy until they leave Gable once and for all. Screaming, of course. Gable said Zayn doesn't understand that they're a family, and Gable said the trio would be with them on Saturday, but he was unleashing his version of Otis on Zayn tonight, and Gable said it would be the most brutal and ruthless version of Otis that Zayn has ever seen. So that's when we get Zayn versus Otis in a non-title match. This was only a minute and a half as Sami Zayn beat Otis after we had Chad Gable distracting Otis. You would assume unintentionally, but it led to a haluva kick and a 1-2-3, and then Gable attacked Zayn after the match, and Otis was looked like he was about to turn on Gable, didn't, and eventually he power slammed Sami again. I mean, a week from the pay-per-view or PLE, less than a week, you're not going to have the big payoff yet. Now, again, I just, how many payoffs have I said are coming, right? With with this specifically, I think it's probably at Clash. This seems like it's going to be at Clash at the Castle, where we do have a final turn by Otis. I don't think the abuse can go on any further. I mean, eventually people are just going to lose respect for Otis. You got to strike like pretty much now. Eventually people are just going to get tired of trying to chant for Otis, and it's going to get a little bit old. So you got to strike now, and that will be, I think, at in Scotland on Saturday. Okay, so let's see. We got Scarlett, who actually said something in the final testament, and she told R-Truth that it was a pleasure reading his fortune, and she also said there was something she said before the match. I forget what it was, but she actually spoke. So that was interesting to hear Scarlett speak instead of just standing there, maniacally. But the fact that the final testament's getting any kind of character development at all is a positive, because for a while they were getting absolutely nothing. So I guess that's a good thing. But then we get an announcement that Cody Rhodes is going to appear on Tuesday's NXT show. So if you want to go see a bleach blonde, smiling, feminine champion, head on over to NXT on Tuesday. Cole then congratulated Kalani. Is it Kalani? Kalani Jordan for becoming the first women's NXT North American champion. And then we got a setup here for the tag team match for Zoe Stark and Shayna versus Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Bianca and Jade were seated at ringside. And this match was only 2.5 minutes, with Shayna and Zoe beating Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. So, yeah, there's that. So, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn have come back out of nowhere to actually make themselves relevant, and I think that's a good thing. Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler, I think, are colder than Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, though, which is saying something. But again, as I just mentioned with Caden Carter and Katana Chance, stars have to start somewhere. You need to build, and you have to have a starting point. There's no such thing as having something go get where you want it to be without it starting somewhere. It just doesn't, that's not how life works. So we have to go through these pains of dealing with the boring, quote unquote, part of their career. And some of these women and men may not pan out to be anything, but this is the path of star development. So I have the patience for it. If you're a casual fan that only tunes in for WrestleMania and SummerSlam and Rumble, you're going to look at this and go, okay, I'm changing the channel. I can't deal. Who are these people, right? Oh, who is this? Who's this? Where's The Rock? Where's Austin? You guys know who these friends in your life are, or at least maybe not friends, but those people in your life that that like wrestling only when it's big and it's the biggest stars and it's legends that come back and it's Mania. You won't see them this time of year. They're ghosts. They are invisible. They go into the ether until it's back to a big event, or they hear something, come through the grapevine that someone's back, or like The Rock's return, right? Only when the biggest of the biggest stars come around do they even ask about it or tune in. But for those of us that are here through the beginning stages of potential big stars' careers, that's how you're a fan for life. If you can stick around through this kind of stuff, which is not bad, by the way. I'm not crapping on, it's bad creative, but through the part of the star process, that's the beginning. That's not a whole lot of excitement. It's just kind of figuring out who they are and laying the foundation. You're a true wrestling fan. That'll be here through thick and thin. So congratulate yourself. Plus, most wrestling fans don't listen to wrestling podcasts. I think only the ones that are diehards do. That's my take, but hey, I don't know. What do I know? All right. So Bron Breakker, as I said, then took on Dragunov. I talked about that at the beginning of the show. 16-minute match, brutal, physical. The crowd was brought into it as the match went on. This is awesome chant broke out. I, again, would not mind seeing these two have another crack at it. Whether maybe it's in the pre-show of Clash, maybe it's in the Raw following Clash, maybe it's, whatever. But I think those two, however you slice it, are going to be involved in the Money in the Bank ladder match coming up in just about a month or so. So I think that they're not done fighting one another, especially given what happened at the end of the match and with Ricochet and everything else. So very impactful segment here with Bron and Dragunov and Ricochet that I don't need to rehash. I just did for 15 minutes at the beginning of the show. All right. So Sheamus backstage told Drew they haven't seen eye to eye lately, but he encouraged him to take the title on Saturday, and Sheamus mentioned Kaiser entering Money in the Bank and said he wants to do the same. McIntyre told him to give a heads up if he cashes in on him, and Sheamus said it would be just like old times with a banger. Okay. So again, we're already leapfrogging the Clash event talking about Money in the Bank, and usually that's like a no-no. But in this case, it makes sense. Like you can look ahead, especially if a talent does not have a program at the PLE. You can go ahead and have that talent leapfrog it and to talk about the next one. I don't really think there's any damage in it. I really don't. I think it's good. It gets people thinking about, oh, okay, yeah, that's this Saturday, but what's next? And it starts to set the stage preliminarily for the next PLE. So I have really no issue with it, even though it's typically like an unwritten rule that you just don't talk about the next PLE until this one's concluded. But I think it's fine. So let's see. We then have, that's what Scarlett said. She told Woods that he can't trust Kofi. That's what it was. So yeah, I'm sure Woods, after all these years, is going to say, well, Scarlett, if you say so, you know what? You're right. So at least Scarlett said something, but I mean, having that come from Scarlett, really anyone wouldn't have convinced Woods of anything, much less Scarlett, but fine. She at least talks, which is a good thing. Okay, but we did get this match here with Miz and R-Truth versus AOP, which is Akam and Razor. And we got the Miz and R-Truth beating AOP in 6 minutes to retain. By the way, this was for the tag team titles, which wasn't the best matchup in the world. I actually thought there was a chance that this time they could lose, that Miz and R-Truth could lose. And boy, are they close to it, I think. There hasn't been much attention paid to them over the last several weeks. And, it seems to be like the kind of the jack is out of the box. We've had our fun and we've enjoyed R-Truth and the Miz and Awesome Truth and all that. And it could just be time for them to drop the belts, and that's okay. I wouldn't lose my mind over it. I think that they had a fun moment. It served its purpose at WrestleMania, and now it's time to give it to a team they can build on. And that, I think that's what it, I mean, again, I'm not going to be angry or not understand if they keep the belts on Truth and Miz. I think that's fine too. But when you don't do anything with your tag team champions and they're barely paid attention to for several weeks, kind of tells you that their reign is coming to an end shortly. Okay, so let's go to where are we going? What's up next? I'm trying not to talk about every little backstage segment. Yes, Adam Pearce wasn't on the show. I'm reading on my screen here like a rundown of Raw. Yeah, so Adam Pearce wasn't there, and talked about Cody on NXT again. And then we get to the main event, Drew McIntyre and Finn Balor, with McIntyre winning. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this was not exactly an exciting main event, given that this was also a heel-heel matchup in which the consequences of the match aren't dire. We all assumed that Judgment Day was going to be there anyway. And even if they were, you would imagine Drew is going to win no matter what the circumstances are. Now, again, there's still an argument to be made for Drew to lose and for Damian to retain, but at least there was something on the line here, and it does force the crowd to cheer for someone. So when you put heel together, which is almost never a main event, by the way, almost never. Think about the last heel Raw main event. I mean, it's pretty rare. You have babyface, which is a more acceptable combination because at least you have vested interest in one of them or both, or you're interested to see how good the match is, and either one is doesn't bother you who wins. When it comes to heel, it's like, well, I don't like either one, so I don't care who loses. But it also at the same time forces you to kind of root for someone, doesn't it? It kind of forces the inside, like your internals, your brain to, if you're forced to choose, who would you cheer for? Who would you support? As a wrestling fan, like that's just, it's in our DNA. And really, no matter what sport we're watching or what movie we're watching, what TV show, there's always usually something good, something bad. You're living vicariously through someone or something, and you're rooting and want to be a part of whatever. And this is kind of the same dynamic. It forces your brain to choose. And I think most people would choose Drew McIntyre in this situation. He's the bigger star. He is a kick-ass dude. He doesn't feel authentic or pandering. He is a guy that is a man's man. He just is, despite the kilt. He is. And, I think that people respect the hell out of Drew. With Finn, he's associated with a group that is generally disliked. Balor has also been kind of, I don't want to say invisible. Maybe, I don't know what the word is. He's been defined down maybe a little bit while he's been in the Judgment Day. Eventually he's going to defect or get kicked out, and maybe the demon character comes back. I think that's been a hot minute. And actually, I think the last time we saw the demon character, wasn't it against the Fiend when the rope broke and then the Fiend beat the demon? Remember that? I think that was during the pandemic. But I think that may have very well been a few years ago, the last time we saw the demon. So, that eventually I think will come back. But since Finn has been in the Judgment Day, he's had some shining moments, but generally he's been a supporting character and not the main character. Very rarely has Finn been a main focal point of the group. It's been Rhea Ripley mostly. It's been Dom and his relationship with Rhea, and then Damian winning the world title. Yeah, it's almost never been about Finn. So Finn has been a supporting role for the most part in that group. So when you look at Drew versus Finn, people are going to side with Drew for those reasons. So it's just interesting. I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, but heel is a very rare combination for a Raw main event. I'm not angry about it. It's unusual is all. So again, Drew beats Finn in 13 minutes. So that means Judgment Day is banned from ringside during that championship match with Priest at Clash at the Castle. And it should be fun. And Damian ended up holding the belt in front of Drew at the end of the show. No contact was made. So a very kind of traditional finish to the show. I mean, it wasn't a shocker of an ending. It didn't, have people tweeting all over social media or posting all over social media about it. It was just a fine ending to a final build for the Raw side of things for the PLE. So I think when you look at the card here for the Raw side of things are built as well as they could be. I know that the tickets aren't cheap over there in Scotland. My good old friend Dino, I know that you, one of our listeners is, I believe you are attending, but boy, I mean, I hope you didn't take out a second mortgage on your house to go. Every time you guys have anywhere overseas, whether it's Ireland or France or Australia, I mean, you guys get gouged for prices. Even when it comes, equate it back to US dollars, you guys get hammered. My God. So, hey, I'm not discouraging you from going, especially since, if you're overseas and you have the chance to go, it's definitely more money, but you're thinking to yourself, hey, well, I'm not going to have another opportunity for maybe years or ever again to have this opportunity, and I'm just going to suck it up and go. And I think WWE is banking on that. I also think that not only are they gouging it a little bit, but also the expenses for WWE to go overseas are greater. So they're kind of passing that cost on to the fans. That's what businesses do. So I'm not shaming WWE for it or whatever. It just is what it is. But I think WWE knows that they can kind of get away with those higher prices on top of the fact that expenses are actually higher for the company to go overseas. They just are, with all the travel, It's a longer trip. Flights there are more expensive. Stays there are more expensive. That kind of thing. So like, there's reasons, but anyway, if you're considering going on the fence, it's not my money, so I can say this, but I'd probably go. If you're like, well, I don't know, just understand that if you're on the fence about it, and you're like, well, I don't know, if you taper your expectations to reality and realize there's probably not going to be any big returns, there may be a few payoffs, right? And maybe some payoffs of some storylines, like Otis turning on Gable finally. I don't know if Dom and Liv is going to be paid off yet. Probably not quite yet, but another step in that direction. So, and realize that you're going to have some really good wrestling and a fun, energized crowd. Then maybe that's enough to get you there and not think about, wow, wait, what if The Rock returns there? What if someone interferes? What if someone comes back? What if just no. Don't go there, because that probably won't happen. Triple H has more often than not had PLEs under his belt that are, very much by the numbers, not big returns, just kind of relying and leaning on the wrestling to tell the stories and judge whether or not it's a good PLE. That's I think, been Triple H's MO for the most part. So yeah, I think that it's going to be a good event. And if you're attending, I hope, send me some notes. Anytime listen, this is a general invitation to anyone who attends a live event, whether it is a non-televised event all the way up to a PLE. I would appreciate notes of in person. Like, I'll give you credit for it. I'll bring it onto the show. Not necessarily even on a mailbag. I'll bring it on like the Raw review or the weekend review. And just, if you're interested in giving me that, I'd appreciate it, of like the things that you notice, the biggest pops during commercial breaks, maybe crazy stuff that happens during the crowd, or chants that we may not have heard at home, that kind of stuff. So it's an open invitation to anyone that does attend live events. So, all right. Well, that may conclude it here for the Raw review. We've got a little under 50 minutes. It's about right for me. So that'll conclude it for me here on the Raw review. I'll be back, I would say tomorrow, but I would lie to your face if I said that, because I've been horrible at the mailbag. I've kind of moved the mailbag to Fridays. I think that's where we're at. You know what I'm going to do? It's going to be a combination episode on Friday with a mailbag / Clash preview. How about that? I think that's what I'm going to do. Tomorrow, we may have the After Dark show by Anthony DeMarco that's going to drop, which we have moved to the middle of the week. That's going to be exclusive for those on the Patreon side of things at the SmackDown tier and above. So if you're interested in getting that exclusive show, that's an adult show, definitely not for the kids. Check that out on patreon.com/WWE podcast. You can also go to www.podcast.com or Apple to get your ad-free experience. All of them have ad-free options. So I'll do a combination episode on Friday for the PLE and for the mailbag. So it'll be probably an hour-plus show that'll come your way this Friday, and obviously NXT in between and the After Dark show in between as well. So I think I am done with that said. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.